And he joins us now. Dasen, I know it's been another very intense day. Once more, visiting areas that have been flood affected. Could you just sum up for us where are the damaged areas? What is the current situation? And are all vulnerable families in safe shelter for the night?
Well, Sally, you would think after seeing what we did in April that we wouldn't be surprised by this type of infrastructure damage and just this mass destruction that we've been seeing. But I can tell you that driving around today and seeing what more damage has been caused has really just shaken us once more. We're seeing much more infrastructure damage, and that seems to have been where the worst of the rains have affected the province this time around. I'm talking about the road networks, the water supply, the electricity outages that we saw. That seems to have been where the focus was this time around. Fortunately, not as many fatalities. Unfortunately, there was a person that passed away in Inanda. That body was recovered after those heavy rains this weekend. You asked about the families. They're also being housed along with the others who are still being housed after the floods. They have not yet moved because that temporary housing has not yet been erected. So yet more families now joining them in some instances where they were looking for safe shelter. But it's just a situation of now currently, such anxiety in the province in different areas just because of all of these reasons. I started the day off in Sea Tides, which is in the Tongaat area on the north coast. That was one of the areas that had it's one of its main roads completely damaged and destroyed. The water supply was cut off there. Fortunately, there were a group of volunteers this morning that were trying to manage traffic. It's just a narrow little road. That's all they had left to get in and out of the area. Without that, there was absolutely no access. So they were making sure that traffic was flowing there. Let's take a listen to what Nazir Sadek had to say. He's with the Community Emergency Response Team.
To be honest, Dasen, at this stage, officials have not even visited us, besides our local councillor. He's come and had a look, but we have no idea as to what are the plans for restoration of this road. This is the little bit that's left there behind us is literally what's connecting us to the areas outside of Sea Tides, Lamasi and Dasanagar.
I think the question I have to ask is it even safe for the residents that are living in this immediate area around us, besides the road that I'm seeing?
Well, currently the area that we're standing in, there is quite a bit of undermining on that area. The tar that we're seeing behind us is literally just suspended in the air. Our concern at this stage is with the volume of traffic that's going through now. Our concern is that this road's going to collapse if it's not seen to shortly. We can see this crack that's developed from Saturday night. It's gone a lot worse. We have seen parts of this road collapse as well while we were standing here. So it is quite unsafe for vehicles to go through. Unfortunately, this is the only way that residents can get through to work or school or anything of that sort.
You know, Dasen, the footage of that road at Sea Tides near Tongaat is astonishing, particularly when you see how close the traffic has to get to that massive hole to get through that area. And as you were saying, it's the only access route at this point. So that's the Sea Tides area around Tongaat. Just talk to us about other areas that experienced damage over the weekend.
And just to pick up on what Nazir Sadek was saying there, fortunately this afternoon I can tell you that some work has begun, but it's going to be a long time before that community sees the road repaired. But at this point it's just about restoring the water supply. But not far from there, about 15 minutes away, is the Mhloti area. Sal, you'll know it well. Those were the visuals that we brought you in April. Those were some of the first videos that were circulating when the floods hit at that time, and once again during the recent rains. That area now taking a beating once more. All of those apartments, sea-facing apartments, a nice, beautiful coastal town with some new developments there as well. They had to be evacuated, some families there, over the weekend. So residents there are extremely anxious about what's happening. They say that they've lived in that area for the longest time. I mean, some of those blocks have been there for 3 or 4 decades, and they haven't seen the type of devastation that they've seen this time around. So now it's a problem with property values, it's a problem with safety, it's an issue with tourism, it's lots of things that are going on there. And that is what's making residents anxious. They don't know what to do. There are problems with insurance claims. The list really does go on. we were at a block called St. Malo, and we spoke to some of the residents there. Let's take a listen to what Alex Curry had to say to us.
The property prices were booming. I think at the moment, down in Australia, we really struggle to even look at selling our properties. As a body corporate, we're extremely concerned. Insurance has come back to us saying they will cover certain areas such as the pool and the decks and things like that, but obviously the retainer walls and the landfill, all the soil, they will not cover. So, and as a body corporate, obviously we're in for millions, and we won't be able to afford to do those repairs. So owners are extremely anxious, and we're not sure of the way forward at the moment. We are working with a number of people in town who have been extremely helpful, obviously private owners, and we are trying to get a game plan together to see what is the best way forward at the moment.
Yeah, particularly difficult, Dasen, for areas such as Umhloti, recently celebrating that they managed to do so much repair work and get back on their feet, and now more devastating flood damage. An interesting tweet this morning from the Premier of your province, Sihle Zikalala, talking about how he and his family were personally affected. He was working on helping get people evacuated, found out later that roads in his area had been washed away, and he actually had to evacuate his own family. Is that in the La Mercy area? Can you tell us more about that and how he and his family and people in that area are doing now?
So that's right. So he put out that post, and that was at the height of it all, and saying that he had to be evacuated. So he is in that general area, in that La Mercy area. That's where he lives. So he was doing some work there on the ground, and as he outlined in that post, he then had to be evacuated himself as a result of what was happening. So the issue here is around access. And remember, with these road networks that were severed, access became a problem. So that's what got residents particularly worried about getting in and out as these roads started to collapse nearby, as the debris and the sand started to cover the roadways. It became a real problem and a real worry. So today, when he was asked about that during a press conference after he did the walkabout with the rest of his delegation, he did downplay it a bit, and he said, look, it wasn't just about him, it was about the broader community, and everyone there was affected. In fact, we can listen in to what he had to say to us earlier today.
I think the community in La Mercy as a whole was left with no access. We could not, all of us, could not go out or enter. So those of us who were in the area had to work to ensure that we clear the roads yesterday, and we managed that by the late, I think, afternoon yesterday. We managed to clear the road, and were able to again have access in and out of the area.
And one has to ask, Dasen, any estimates as to how much this has only increased the repairs bill from April's flooding, because the infrastructure damage has been quite extreme. Am I correct that there was a number of at least 27 billion being mentioned last week? This is before the weekend's flooding?
Well, I can tell you that although there were no new figures that were given today, remember, all of this damage, the new damage now needs to be quantified, and it's really a messy situation because some work had started and some money was already allocated. Now that work has been taken a step back. So there's a lot going on right now in putting those figures together. But one thing was clear. The Premier of the province categorically saying that this is going to do two things. So one is that it's going to set this province back, and it's going to secondly cost a lot more money. He didn't say how much more that would be, but what it effectively means is that the initial allocation for the flood damage may now not be enough. I mean, you saw the visuals with that road that we showed you earlier, and that's just one of the areas. We're talking about other areas that were also badly affected. The temporary measures, for example, that were put in place to bring water to affected areas, some of that has now been ruined completely, so that needs to start again. So it seems like these numbers will have to be put together, this will have to be quantified, and I think when we do get that final tally, it's probably going to scare us a lot more than it did in the initial period.
Absolutely a devastating news, and thank you very much for your comprehensive reporting. I know you've been across these affected regions from early this morning. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much, eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah.